Once upon a time, in a quiet village nestled among towering mountains and sprawling meadows, a boy named Thomas was known for his bright eyes and contagious laughter, but behind his cheerful facade, he carried the weight of several problems that seemed to overshadow his days. In the modest cottage where Thomas lived with his parents, life was far from easy. His father, Mr. Thompson, worked long hours as a carpenter, struggling to make ends meet. Thomas's mother, Mrs. Thompson, worked as a seamstress, but her earnings were meager, barely enough to cover the family's basic needs. Every morning, Thomas woke to the sound of his parents' hushed conversations. They spoke in worried tones about unpaid bills, dwindling food supplies, and the uncertainty of the future. Despite his own troubles, Thomas was a kind-hearted soul. At school, he noticed a boy named Peter being picked on by a group of bullies. Peter, who wore thick glasses and walked with a slight limp, was an easy target. Thomas's heart sank as he watched Peter's shoulders slump in defeat. Determined to help, Thomas approached the bullies and stood up for Peter. He told them to leave him alone and offered to walk to school with Peter every day. Grateful for the support, Peter smiled through his tears and accepted the offer. As they walked together, Peter shared his own problems. He explained how he struggled in school because he couldn't see the blackboard clearly and how other kids mocked him for it. Thomas listened with empathy, realizing that everyone had their own battles to fight. At school, Thomas faced his own challenges. He was a diligent student, but he found it difficult to concentrate when his mind was filled with worries about his family's finances. Math, in particular, was a source of frustration. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't seem to grasp the concepts. One afternoon, Thomas stayed behind to ask his teacher, Miss Adams, for help. He confessed his struggles and his fear of falling behind. Miss Adams smiled warmly and assured him that it was okay to ask for help. Together, they went through the dot problems step by step. With her guidance and his own determination, Thomas began to improve and gain confidence. Despite his progress, the financial troubles at home worsened. One evening, Thomas overheard his parents speaking of mounting debts, overdue rent, and the looming threat of eviction. Tears welled up in his eyes as he realized the extent of their struggle. He felt helpless, unable to provide the solution they so desperately needed. Determined to make a difference, Thomas took on odd jobs around the village, mowing lawns, washing dishes, and running errands. Every penny he earned went to his parents, but it was never enough. One day, Thomas stumbled upon a flyer for a local talent show. The grand prize was a substantial sum of money, enough to pay off his family's debts. Excited, he rushed home. His parents were hesitant at first, fearing he would be heartbroken if he didn't win, but Thomas reassured them. "I have a plan, and I won't give up without a fight." Thomas threw himself into practice, playing his guitar at every spare moment. On the night of the show, the village hall buzzed with excitement. Thomas stepped onto the stage, his heart pounding as he strummed the first chords. He poured his heart and soul into the music, channeling all his hopes and fears into the song. The audience fell silent. His voice was raw with emotion and filled with determination. When he finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. The applause was thunderous. In the end, Thomas did not win the grand prize. However, he won something far more valuable, the admiration of his community. Moved by his courage, the villagers came together to raise money for Thomas's family, ensuring they would have a roof over their heads and food on the table. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Thomas hugged his parents tightly. He realized that even in the darkest of times there is always hope, as long as you have love, determination, and a supportive community. Would you like me to help you write a similar inspirational story, or perhaps a poem based on Thomas's journey?